Hello, and welcome to Loving Our Fears with Shikara Stogi. Last week, the death numbers from COVID in the United States crossed the 500,000 mark, and it's estimated that around 4 million people are currently grieving the loss of these 500,000 lives. Although death is nothing new and it's part of living this life in human form, and chances are most adults have already come face to face with reality where they may have lost loved ones and have already gone through the grieving process. However, it's still mind-boggling to think about these numbers, especially because of all these lives that were lost within a very short period of time, the period of time that has been making history around the world. So with so many people grieving, not only in the United States, but also around the world, most of us may be intellectually aware but here's the thing, it's one thing to know that it is a process intellectually, but it's a completely different thing to actually go through this process yourself, because grieving is raw. Grieving is one of the most complex of human emotions, because when you are grieving, you not only feel immense sadness for the one you lost and miss them deeply, but you may also feel varying degrees of hopelessness and frustration, and even anger from time to time. You may feel a very deep sense of lack of control over everything in your life, or you may even feel a sense of guilt over what happened and the fact that you couldn't do anything about what happened. You may feel despair and helpless. And because of the fact that the grieving process is a combination of so many of these feelings and emotions, your grieving journey can make you feel confused and overwhelmed, because you may not be sure what it is that you're feeling. And this confusion may also lead you to lose your faith and trust in that higher power or universe or God, whatever it is that you believe in. And this may be especially true if your loved one departed too suddenly or at a young age. So even though every single thing that you feel in the grieving process could be overwhelming, but one of the biggest threats to your mental well-being while you're grieving comes directly from fear. Fear of not grieving enough or grieving too much for too long. Fear of never being able to hug, touch, or feel those we lost. Fear of not having them around for when we need them to celebrate our successes or cry with us during our failures. Fear that we won't be able to live without them and life may never be the same. That we may never become happy again, or fear that we may lose someone again and won't be able to bear that pain again. Fear that we may be stuck in our multitude of feelings that change every few minutes, or fear around feeling happy again and not missing them anymore. As you can see, the bottom line is fear always lurks behind in the shadows of grief, always. And if you are unaware of this fear, it can completely consume you and your life. So if grieving is a highly complex combination of emotions and feelings, and on top of that, you also need to be aware of the fear entangled within all these feelings and emotions, then how does one deal with the complex nature of their grieving process? Well, one of the very first things is that if your definition of dealing with this process, fighting with it, so that you stop feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, then don't even try to deal with it. Instead, each night before you go to bed, take at least 10 minutes to sit with yourself in silence. Then intentionally bring all your attention to the part of you that's hurting in that moment. Then in your mind, remember yourself as a young 3 or 4 years old kid, and allow yourself to feel all the compassion that you can find in your heart at this time, and shower yourself with your compassion. Shower yourself with compassion because you are hurting, you are in pain. Yourself like you are a young child who just got hurt very badly. Give yourself some love. Hug yourself. Cut yourself some slack for not being able to get over it. We do this all the time for friends and family members who are in pain, but we somehow forget to take the same approach when that someone is us. In your grieving process, another thing that you need to be mindful of is comparing your grieving with others. If there is someone else in your family who's grieving as well, don't try to compare notes about who's feeling what. It's okay to talk about your feelings, but the thing about a human mind is that it loves to compare. And as soon as it realizes that someone else is hurting more or less, it makes a sad or happy story out of it, which doesn't help with the healing. Creating a story only makes matters worse. Grieving is very personal. It doesn't look the same for everyone. It doesn't last as long for everyone. For some, it takes years, while others may be on the other side of this process in just a few months. But no matter what grieving looks like for you, in most cases, people lie to others when asked about how they are doing, because we live in a society where hurting for too long is not very appealing. It's not very acceptable. It makes you look weak as a human being. It makes you look less positive. Yet, this is exactly what should be acceptable in our society. The complete and total mess that this grieving process is, and the rebirth after, because miracles have a chance when hearts are broken open, because healing can only ever begin in hearts that are open. Closed hearts only cause distress and pain. So are you ready to heal?